Okay, so this is like the third time I've tried to do this, because every time I think I'm done recording this, I find another trick to do this. So we're gonna try it with this one. We're gonna see how well I can remember anything. So we have a blank FL project, and we're going to use Maschine 2 in it. Add Maschine 2 real quick. Just for record, I have a Micro Mark II is what I'm using. I don't have the big one. I have the Micro. But I got it over here, and we're just gonna run it like this. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to do the audio routing. Okay. So just for color's sake, I'm just going to change the color on this to, let's say, blue here. And I'm going to put this in channel 1. My mixers, your mixer might look different. Mine's set to compact, but Maschine is in channel 1. Okay. I'm going to go to the gear, that other gear in the middle, go to processing, and then just hit auto map outputs. You can manually change this. That's up to you. But what it will do is automatically set all the outputs to the right of wherever you routed this. So let me put in some samples, right? So it's routing here by default. What you can do on a per group basis or a sound basis, click this little dot here, and you can go to output, change the destination from master or external one, which as far as I can tell is the same thing. It doesn't care. It's just going to treat them like the same thing when you do it that way. I'm going to set it to 2. And you see that it moved to the right. So I changed it per group, right? 2, it's the one right next to it. We keep adding groups, you just change their audio routing wherever you want it. Now, that's based off of this, okay? If you move these numbers, it will move them more to the right or more to the left. This is the second output, so that's what it does. If you were to set this negative and go negative, it will go left, the mixer. But for the sake of this, just hit auto map outputs, and then within Maschine, when you pick your outputs, you can change your external destination of groups. Let's say I want my hi-hat separate. Just same thing, go to sound, go to output, and instead of the destination being the group, which is what we set all of it to go to, you can just pick this manually as well. Now the hi-hat's in its own separate thing, right? You can set them per group, you can set them per sound. It's kind of up to you. It seems as though it'll only go up to about 16 outputs, so do that with what you will. Try to, keep them managed. But what I want to do is build a little pattern. I'm going to use step mode real quick. And oh, you know what? Let's do the recording thing here, since this might come in handy. There are kind of 2 different ways you could do this, because trying to record these patterns in FL kind of sucks. If you wanted to be kind of safe, depending, you could have it in the pattern, but make sure your pattern is set to the same length as your thing you want to record. Because when you hit play, if this is different, it's going to prioritize FL like that, right? It's just going to keep re-looping it. You could obviously set this to double the pattern, and then it's not really going to be a big deal, but this pattern is still only playing 4 beats instead of 8. So if you're going to extend it, be aware of that. Like, this is This is still going to loop even though this is longer than that. Okay. It's not super quantized, but sure. Sure. So we're gonna have this. If you're just using this group, and this is your whole thing, right? Oh, I see. It's offset. See. Oh, keep track of you know where it started, where your loop's supposed to start. For starters, you. If all we're doing is this group, you could have more sounds. I didn't add the. Didn't add that funny one. There we go. I mute it. Must have done something weird. So let's just put that on the first hit, right? A bit obnoxious, but this is a demo. We're just testing. You have your one group. You want to go over to this menu you can't see. I'm gonna add a MIDI out. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna change Machine's settings in this menu to MIDI input port 1. You could make this 5 million, I don't care. I'm just gonna set it to 1 for this. Then in your MIDI out, port 1. And if this was all you're doing, this is kind of the end of it. That's all the routing you have to do if you're just using the one group. Not playing keyboard, piano samples, you don't have to do anything. If you're just playing one shots like a drum pad, pretty much done. Now that you have your MIDI out, you go back to Machine, and you want to go back to the routing menu, group, input, set it to Drumkit. Okay? Got it in Drumkit, you can drag this out, drop it in MIDI. It gives you a menu you can't see. It says all tracks, I just hit accept, and it put the entire group Drumkit MIDI right here. Because these are now, very quietly, but these are controlling all of the sounds. The only other thing you're going to want to do is make a new pattern and make sure that it's blank. Because anytime that you hit play in FL Studio, it's going to try to... It's just going to keep playing this, right? Like this is just going to always run. But now that we have our pattern, you can treat this more like it is in FL Studio, because it will play exactly the pattern that we had. And if you wanted to make a new one or make more, you can just drag this little MIDI out into the MIDI from here, over into here, and it will just be one-to-one what it is. Now, I mean, like, I don't want this effect sound to play, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. And if we were in the project and everything, this is gonna behave more of how you know FL behaves like, right? You could also, for example, I want the hi-hat out of here. I want it in its own thing. And you could break it out like that into different patterns. It'll still work. So, if all you were doing was one-shot samples with this, you're good. You're golden. You do the little routing you got there. You have it all set to Drumkit. If you're using Drumkit, we're cool. Everything just works like that. If you want to go further than Drumkit, things get really stupid very quickly. And that's why a lot of times I just don't bother to do that. Let's see if I can wrap my head around, even have my own little guide here. Let's see if I can wrap my head around explaining different ways that you could add groups and different ways you could do this if what you're trying to do is add like a synth that plays notes, right? So I'm just gonna make a new group. I'm gonna add Serum to, doesn't show this to you, I'm just gonna set it to mono and do a little tweaking real quick. So now I have it broke out into like the piano roll, right? So let's say you get your melody, you get everything the way that you want it to be. Right? This is where things get a little bit stupid, because let's say I want to record this, right? Well, I want that drum pattern to be playing. If you make the mistake of playing this while that's going, it's treating this as MIDI in the same way as if the controller was playing it. So it's going to override anything you do with this group with these drum inputs, because as far as it cares, it is recording this, right? Technically, you could just use a different controller. You could have a different MIDI system, and you could control Maschine live with a controller that's not this. If you did this method, it would work. But I have the micro, so we're gonna base it off the micro. So what you're gonna want to do is make sure that this is not playing. Make sure that it is not adding any additional notes. You want to do kind of 50-50 for how you want to do this. You could do it as a blank in the channel rack, or you could do it in here as long as this was having no notes and it was just, you know, playing and looping in here. That would be fine. Because as long as this isn't doing MIDI, you can still get rid of that note right there. Take that. As long as this is playing in Maschine, this one isn't going to override what you're doing. So you can still use this to do a little doodle here, right? Like, so you can definitely make your patterns. Same thing. Remember to make a blank pattern for this as well, because it's just going to keep trying to play. But with Drumkit mode, as long as pattern 1 is set, group 1 is set to Drumkit, things are not going to behave exactly right. And any other group set to Drumkit is going to get in the way of this. Because, of course it does, because native instruments, right? Because native instruments just can't have it just work. So here's a way to deal with that. Or no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's what it will do if you mess this up, okay? Is what ideally you do to control the synth is very similar. You would go in the sound. You don't need to do this by group. It isn't even going to work by group. Go to the sound, down here, input, MIDI, source host, and then it needs to pick a new channel, and I would probably disable throughput, probably. So this is supposed to be channel 2. The other one's on channel 1, this is on channel 2. So if I make another count, typical port 1, because that's what Maschine set to, channel 2. This will do is control synth with the piano roll, right? Which is all well and good, if that's actually what it did. Because if I pick group 1 again, because it's in Drumkit, it's playing the drums. Because of course it is. Because it just took everything from the port and just doesn't care about the channel. Just completely ignored the channel because, well, why? I don't know, but that's what it does. There is a workaround to this. Obviously, one trick might be don't click group 1. Like maybe if you make a new group, it won't do that. Right? But I would be willing to bet you it may not play this either. Yeah. It's just evaporated into space now. Because You know, why would Maschine why would it work? Why would it work that easy, you know? So, here's a little workaround. Someone that might know better than me can come up with a very clever fix for this, but go back to your group on the one that should be a drum kit and just change it down one. You want manual, source host, and you want it set to your correct channel. And then for some reason, this needs to be set to 2 notes below your actual starting note. Why? I don't know why it's 2. I don't know what happened. I can only tell you that that's kind of what it does. Like, if you export from Drumkit, it starts at C4, but this is C2. Okay? What you'll get out of that is that it will just behave again, right? It'll do all these pads the way that it's supposed to do all these pads. But my warning to you here is that it isn't going to export the same way. It isn't going to export that well. Because if I go back to my pattern and I try to do my pattern thing again, it just ignores it. It exported basically just the hi-hats. And it's putting them all on the same C5 note. Because why would it behave? So, recommendation to you is, if you are doing it this way, switch it back to Drumkit. You can export it exactly like you expect it to be from Drumkit, and then put it back to manual, and it will just remember this and then just flip to Drumkit when you need to bounce something and then back. Technically works. It technically works. You wanted to do this the hard way, it technically does work. You could also, I mean, obviously, you could just write new patterns in here, because this might as well just be drum programming, FL like this, right? Whoops. Remember to make sure that the pattern's blank, right? And then you can actually have the synth pattern without it getting in the way of everything else. Pattern 1, make sure I'm on the right thing, and I very easily just drag it out, right? Set it back to blank, and now I can put it here and it will just... It will work. It will work. And you can do this with multiple groups set to Drumkit, quote unquote. But keep in mind that anytime that you need a sound to play keyboard, you have to actually assign it specifically its own routing, its own like MIDI. There it is. Because if you don't, it's just going to play one note. It just triggers a single note. And you can work around the Drumkit mode by these shenanigans, and this will work. Not my favorite thing in the world, but it does work. You can do multiple groups just for fun's sake. Let's do it that way. You set this to Drumkit, it's gonna freak out. Okay. Make sure you have all of your stuff set individually. Just gonna grab a sample. Just do one hat for the sake of it doing this, right? Step mode it. And then I'm going to make a blank pattern. Right. So, you already know you got to do MIDI out, channel match the new group, which I believe would be 3. Source host, channel 3, and then this needs to be likely just C2. Then I set it back to Drumkit mode on pattern 1. Sure, you know, sure our stuff match, port 3, and I'll just drag it out. Set this off Drumkit back to manual. There you go. And now it doesn't overlap. And you don't have to do multiple different groups like this. If I wanted to do another sound in the yellow group, if I just remove its keyboard thing and I add another one in here, just make another of serum. Now I'm just going to keyboard this. Again, make sure you have... Don't let it do any MIDI. You could do it in the piano in here if you prefer it to be done in here. Just remember that this needs to be the same length as whatever the thing is you're eventually trying to record. So any MIDI that it's going to get from everything else is going to mess this up. It's a tad obnoxious, but this is an example. Same thing, this sound, routing. We use 3 for that. We'll have to use 4 for this. Input, post, 4. I don't want through. Out. 1, 4. Here. There it is. Now it's a pattern, right? Same thing. Oops. Blank patterns. Blank patterns. Set them back to blank. Keep in mind, if you're doing multiple groups of many one-shots, it's going to want you to do this manual key mode, set it to C2, and that's how this is going to want to do. And if you want to pull the MIDI out of this, flip it back to Drumkit and then flip it back. Because for some unbelievable reason, this key mode setting drastically changes what the MIDI output is from this. And while as an example, I put multiple things in here with their own individual sound routings, I probably wouldn't actually do that. I'd probably just keep them in different groups. You know, I probably wouldn't add mode 2 things in the same group. I would just move it, you know. And there's one more thing I do want to show you that is a possibility, but I don't necessarily have to do it the super broke out way. I don't know if you should be doing it this way. Like this, the way I showed you is a tad better. It kind of depends. Because if you were doing these groups, right? This is set to an entire group MIDI control on just the one channel, which saves you channels. You only have 16 channels. So anything that's doing like one shots, you could put them all into the same one area. If you were playing it all on these pads, that'd be cool. And then you could have individual sounds in a keyboard broke out on the, this would be what I would do. Or recordings, or however you want to do it, because you could technically set all of these, instead of it being a group, you could set them all individually channel outputs, right? You could set it to source channel 1 or host channel 1. And that will work, but it's going to make you have like 16 of these, and each one is going to have its own trigger. So you could basically have all of your MIDI channel outs just be in, which I saw at least one other guy's tutorial was like that, because he was using synths, much like I have in the yellow group. It would do that. You can do that, but a lot of times I want this to be kind of manual, and I want to play a little bit of, you know, I want all my doodles, I want my live drums, and I might build the project just in Maschine, and then open FL Studio and open the project in Maschine, instead of, instead of, you know, record it in here. Because recording it in here, like you saw, might be a bit weird. Just is. It's very weird. But yes, I wanted to show you that you can actually use all of your, you know, outputs and everything. And just looking for a... It's fine. And you could have all of your programming, everything you did in Maschine, if you wanted to arrange it in FL, wanted to move things around, or you wanted to make changes, but you don't want to have to keep pulling out of this program, you just run it like a VST, and then you can control all your individual bits. A thing that I might do, for example, is I might mess with Serum while playing with the board, and then make all the adjustments, and then I just can't be bothered to try to bounce it all out. Because you could just open Serum here, copy whatever your init file, whatever your preset that you made was, and then you could just drag all of your individual MIDI into a playlist, which you can do, but I just kept using it in Maschine. You mean, you could technically break it out, you could use Maschine solo. This is just a way that, like, I make little doodles with this program and then put it in FL and then break out from FL. So once I have it all like this, anything that I do or don't like going forward, I can change. You know, I can add stuff. It's still FL. It's FL like this. I'm just using MIDI sends to control Maschine, which it doesn't love to do. But usually I would only really go as far as using it as a drum kit, as the first example, since you're making lo-fi, you're making beats, and I want them all to be on group, and it's pretty dang fast at that. But remember that if you're doing multiple groups, keep in mind that drum kit routing will get to you, and you're probably going to want to set it like this with manual and flip between. But that'll do it. That'll work as a that beat sucks. Yeah, there you go. I am gonna get out of here. I hope that was kind of useful to you. Peace out.